FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz, and today is April 15th, 2020. Normally would be tax day, but due to the emergency, tax day has been rolled back to July 15th, 2020. But while you might not have to pay your taxes, you do have to pay your mortgage. Well, maybe you don't. There's issues going on, and we got Debbie Bloyd back with us now of DLB Mortgage Services. Debbie, it's great to have you back on. So what is going on with the mortgage situation? How many of you out there are requesting deferrals, and how are they being handled by the banks?
Okay, so thanks so much for having me back on. It's really a messy time in the mortgage business. As you talked about, we do have mortgage deferrals right now. But I would say don't do that unless you absolutely have to. There's a lot of rules with that. And the thing I'm afraid people are going to do is say, wow, I get a free pass on my mortgage this month. I don't have to pay. The problem is you can say that to your servicer. And so you're going to be calling the 1-800 number at the top of your mortgage statement, calling that servicer and asking for that deferral. But they're going to ask you some questions that you need to answer honestly, because if not, it's going to come back to bite you. They're going to say, have you been laid off, lost your job, or had a price of like a salary reduction in your pay due to COVID-19? And if you say yes, you figure they're never going to know, then you're going to be really, I think, scared, nervous, and upset when you find out that 3 months later, they're going to make you prove it. So you're going to have, this is not just a free pass for a month on your mortgage. If you've been laid off or furloughed or whatever you want to call it, fired from your job and had to file unemployment, yes, that makes sense to do it. But in 120 days, 3 months from now, you're going to have to make that payment. So people are saying, well, I may do it this month and next month. Well, great. Then 120 days later, you're going to have to pay the whole thing. And if you can't pony up 2 months of your mortgage that you deferred, you're going to have to go into a mortgage deferment plan, and they're going to recalculate your mortgage, and your mortgage is going to go up.
Mm-hmm. I thought you could get 100.
That's not good.
I thought you were able to get 180-day deferral, and all you had to do was certify that directly or indirectly you had been affected by the COVID-19 virus economically.
You do, but you're going to have to prove it, like I said. And we don't know what what the lenders are going to take as proof.
Mm-hmm. And
so
also,
would I prove that I've been furloughed or that I've gotten unemployment? I mean, how would I prove that?
Yeah, well, I thought you didn't have to prove it. If you're working at your
job and you're just working from home, then you really don't, quote, need to utilize that. I'm not going to pay my mortgage this month.
Oh, interesting. Well, I had heard that the FHA-backed mortgages, when there's a deferral or forbearance, because that's what you're asking for, a forbearance,
right?
That they would simply tack those payments that you missed onto the end of the mortgage. I'm not sure what.
Yes, it's up to the servicers is the problem. So it's up to each individual servicing company, and some may do it, and some may. Yes, they may tack it on, but there also may be a penalty. There could also be a service fee for doing that, and no telling. We don't know how much that's going to be yet.
So you got to be careful.
Nothing is free. Yeah, it's just be really careful. I mean, you need to call the servicers because they can tack on any kind of fee. And then what is that going to look like on your credit if you go to refinance or buy another house someday? Is it going to show that? We're going to have to do a letter of explanation that says, yes, you took advantage of this. That's why you don't have a mortgage payment for 3 months. And how are the lenders going to view that going forward if you have to get a new mortgage or refinance? Right.
So a lot of question marks here, a lot of open issues.
A lot of question marks.
Yeah. So you do this.
So the way it works now is that if you have a problem with your credit, or if you go to, say, a credit repair company and say, I need help with credit, what that does is that red flags your file saying that, yes, I don't know how to manage my money. I need help. And a lot of people are unable to get a loan after that at the same best rate that they could have before, just because they went to get help somewhere. It is noted on their credit. Now, with so many people going to be taking advantage of this forbearance, will that go as a strike against them? I don't think so, because there are going to be so many people taking advantage of it. Then I would never be able to refinance or help anyone purchase in the next few years that have taken advantage of this. Now, what is going to happen if it shows you're unemployed and you had to take unemployment? Yes, there's a reason for it, but I think the lenders are going to see how fast can you get back on your feet. So, the reason you get a loan is because you've had consistent pay and you've had good credit. And if either of those get affected, it may change the way you're able to purchase in the future. That's what I'm scared about for people. Not, right now so much, is what does this mean for them if they decide that they want to refinance the house that they're in or sell the house and get a new house? How is this lapse in credit going to affect them? Will they have a higher rate? And I think they might.
Yeah, there's a lot of unknowns, so you got to tread carefully here. And
yes, sir.
Yeah. So as far as the real estate market, are closings still happening? Are people backing out of deals?
Yes.
Right and left?
Oh, no. So, yeah, I still have, I have 15, 17 loans going right now. I have 5 purchases this month. And these are people that started looking at the houses and put contracts on right before. I'm in Texas, so right before Texas went on lockdown, these are people that had already purchased, have a purchase contract. Most of them, they're apartment people now, and they're moving out. They've already said they're moving out, so they don't have a choice to stop. They have to live somewhere, right? So they're still continuing. I just got a new contract in this weekend, and they are purchasing a house closing on May 15th, and they were looking at empty houses. So if you're looking at an empty house, you can still walk in and look at the house. It's only the ones that are occupied that are the problem.
Mm-hmm. But obviously the market has slowed down dramatically because you can't have a realtor show you, and you have all sorts of issues, right? Yes.
So they're going to be slower going forward. But I think once all these states are lifted, whether individually or together as a group, you're going to see real estate pick back up, because, a lot of people plan ahead, and there's quite a few people that don't. So having this month and a half where you can't get in to see houses, I think you're going to see a lot of purchases really fast, because these people are needing to get out of either their leases or move across the country or do whatever they need to do to relocate. And they were on like a May 30th deadline, or maybe June 15th or something. They're going to have to decide faster. They've lost a couple months of looking at houses now.
I see. But people who are discretionary moves, upgraders, etc., might very well put it on hold, huh?
Yes, sir. It really depends if they're looking for, like my last couple looked at empty houses. They can still get in and see those. But if they're looking in lived-in houses, they're going to have to keep waiting. I think a lot of people are anxious about their job and if they're going to keep them or not. But then I have a lot of borrowers that are gotten great. They have great jobs, so therefore they are not in a position where they think their job is going to be jeopardized. I've only had one out of these 15 families that got a pay reduction of 30%, and they still qualified, and they're moving forward.
Hey, well, you know that JP Morgan Chase has upped their criteria. You now need a 700 credit score and 20% down. Do you think that's going to be a trend with other lenders?
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Lumina Gold, ticker symbol LUM on the Toronto Venture and LMGDF on the OTC, is yet another of legendary mining investor Ross Beaty's Lumina Group. It's advancing the largest primary gold deposit in Ecuador. The resource is estimated to contain 16.7 million ounces of gold and 2.2 billion pounds of copper. At just $7 US per ounce gold equivalent, it trades at an incredible 13% of its net present value. More good news is on the way with an updated PEA study expected in Q2 of 2020. It has unparalleled infrastructure. There's grid power to camp with plentiful, inexpensive hydropower available. It's close to 2 ports and is just 8 kilometers from a paved highway. Water is plentiful. It's at low elevation, and the closest community, which is very supportive of Lumina's effort, is just a 7-kilometer ride. With all this going for it, it's likely to follow the typical Ross Beaty formula, which means big returns to shareholders. Find out more and sign up for notifications at luminagold.com. That's Lumina, Lumina gold.com.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
No, because so if you go to a bank, I used to be vice president of community banks, and banks are very in the box, 20% down. They have to sell their loans on the secondary market. That's why I became a broker again, is because there are so many other loans out there and people are still putting 5% down, 3.5% down, 10% down. It's just the big banks that are going to warehouse these that don't want to do that. Every other lender that's a national lender and even some of my smaller lenders are still approving everything. The only loans that have been kind of sidetracked, and I'm down to only one lender that's doing a bank statement loan. And those are for mainly self-employed borrowers.
Yeah, and there weren't a lot of them doing that anyway, right?
No, there was probably 3 or 4 that I was signed up with, and I'm down to 1 still.
Wow. Interesting. Well, interesting times here in the world of real estate. So you think it's just going to bounce back like that? Well, I guess a lot of it depends upon employment prospects, right?
It does. Most of the people, I'm blessed to be in Dallas, Fort Worth, and a lot of the people that are in this area that I concentrate on, the part of the leads that I get and the agents that I work with, they're doing your mid to upper income homes, people that are not on their first job. So I'm not presently doing a lot of homes for the workers that were laid off. Most of my people are professionals in management. And while they can lose their pay, they're not they're not getting laid off right now. So that's good. And if they do, they have enough cushion that they're picking up the spouse. Only one of the spouses is needed to qualify. We don't need both of them.
Right. And what about small businesses? You had any experience lately with small business people? They've really been hit hard by this.
They have. And I did have a lady that owns a roofing company, and based on not being able to get into people's houses and doing insurance work, a lot of that has dried up right now. No one is doing anything. So she had a house that she had under contract, and she had to bust that because she was not able to qualify because her profit and losses didn't look good these last couple of months when she hasn't been earning any income. Again, loans are income driven. And at least in the state of Texas, you have to have a job, or if you're using your money in funds like money market funds or IRAs or 401ks, you have to have a 2-year record of pulling that money out. So for my small business owners, they've really had to just sit still and wait till the market picks back up, even in the construction business. And that's one of those businesses that is still open and going right now.
Mm-hmm. So another question. I've heard that banks, I don't know if they're doing this or there's talk of them doing it, but that they're going to do a last minute employment verification before they close the loan?
Yes, they are doing that. So usually we do verifications a week before closing. So that's not unnatural. We do verifications during the process, and then about 5 days before, they always call to verify the employment's still there. That's been happening for years. That hasn't changed. What has changed is they've moved that from a week before closing to the day before closing. So they really want to make sure now that they are employed and that they were employed up to the day before they close. Now, the problem is you never know and this has always been a question I've had, they feel that W-2 people are much safer bets on mortgages and they're easier to get approved than self-employed. Yet W-2s, you've seen all these people being furloughed and changed and laid off or whatever. W-2 doesn't safeguard you from that.
Very, very true. Well, I guess we're all in it together, and we're just going to have to see what happens. As far as when you've got this issue where you've got a contract and you want to get out of it, have they applied force majeure, which is like, I guess a pandemic kind of is force majeure. It usually deals with wars, riots, famines, flooding, earthquakes, etc.
No, I haven't seen that. What I've seen is just that they have called me and we have to say that they no longer qualify for the loan. I send them a denial now, and it comes from the lender. Good. If we can't verify income through their job, it'll come through the lender at that point.
I see. So at that point, then they could get their deposit back. But there's that cancellation period where you have to qualify for the loan, and then if you don't, it's you're kind of then you can get your deposit back and all that. But once you've qualified for it, are you able to cancel the contract later on because you're no longer qualified?
Well, no, you cancel it, but you don't get your money back.
Right.
So, for example, my roofer, when she had to concentrate and cancel her contract, she was able to cancel the contract, but she lost all $5,200 earnest money. And then the sad thing was her seller, the people that were selling their home, they had already, this was like a week before closing that this happened. So they had to actually, they'd already moved and they had everything in a moving van. They actually had to live out of their house with mattresses on the floor. And now that she's not able to purchase, I'm not for sure what they're going to do. They were going to move across the country, and that's not going to happen now.
Yeah, and I've heard these stories. A friend of mine was selling her home. It was a second home, so she didn't have to move or anything, but she did have to move all her stuff out. And then the people wanted to back out because there was a question whether he still had a job or not, et cetera. And she held firm and said, all right, you're going to lose your deposit then. You can always back out. I won't sue you, but you're going to lose your deposit. No, we want it back. And they went back and forth and finally decided they were better off closing. So I guess
it is a really bad time right now for everybody. It's very unknown. This is probably the biggest bunch of unknowns we've had in a long time.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. So, but we appreciate you coming on, Debbie, and explaining a lot of those unknowns to us, a lot of the factors that you have to consider. I know, and I'm going to be putting this up on a stimulus Facebook group as well. I know people are going to have questions. Can you just give us kindly your email address, and people will be able to contact you, and maybe you'll be able to help them out with a new loan?
Yes, sir. The way to contact me is 979-220-3018. My email address is debbie@dlbmortgageservices.com. And I have a great website that has a lot of answers to questions on it. They can go to dlbmortgage.com.
All right. Excellent. We really appreciate you coming on and clarifying a lot of this for us, because there's so much of it's still up in the air. A lot of what you're saying the banks are doing appears to be in contravention of the regulations handed down by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And it will be interesting to see how this gets remedied, because the Fed recently, or should have brought this up before, mentioned that they're not going to put up with lenders or servicers that improperly, squeeze these distressed borrowers. So we'll have to see how it shapes up. I don't know at this point. I don't think anyone knows. A lot of this, they're just making up, Debbie, as they go along,
Yeah, and that's why it's so important. If you don't need to do your mortgage deferral, I would say please do not. Just because we're not sure, and the lenders are not sure how they're going to do that in the future. It may be a great temporary solution for you, but I don't know what kind of proof you're going to have to give that shows that you were affected. I have had people say they were going to use it, and they'll just wait for the ramifications later. But, I'm a planner. I don't think that's probably the best way to do it.
I totally agree with you. You're better off being upfront, knowing what the ramifications are, and dealing with it than waiting around and waiting for the Grim Reaper. Appreciate it. Anyway, guys, questions, comments?
Thank you so much.
Any questions or comments out there? Just email me, kl@kerrylutz.com. That's kl@kerrylutz.com. I will forward them off to Debbie, and we'll get you answers. And check the Twitter feed at Kerry Lutz, the Facebook page, Financial Survival Network, and of course, our home site, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Debbie, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.